Hello. Just some interesting thoughts on physics, modern physics. When I say modern, I mean the physics that came into play about 100 odd years ago with Einstein and his special relativity stuff and quantum mechanics. Okay? Now, Einstein, I think, somehow managed to do something that was incredibly strange. What he did was he got rid of the idea of the ether. Okay, in his world, there's no such thing as an ether. Now, that's very, very strange when you think about it, because put two magnets together with their north poles facing, and you obviously get a repulsive, repelling force. Fine. We all know that's because there's a magnetic field between those two permanent magnets. Obviously. So here's the question. What's the magnetic field made of? According to Einstein, in effect, nothing. It's made of a mathematical abstraction of sorts. That's absolute nonsense, of course. It's made of something. Something is made of something, always, unless you want to run away and do completely nonsensical magical thinking. This is why I think Nikola Tesla, a true technical genius who virtually invented the 20th century, described the obvious existence of the ether. It's utterly, utterly obvious. I think Einstein referred to it as being made up of energy. Like the magnetic field is somehow made up of energy. But that's an explanation to nothing, because what actually is energy, really? It's matter in motion when you boil it down. That's all it is. It's all it can be with respect to what the human brain can even begin to comprehend. And matter in motion is something in motion. You cannot abandon the idea of an ether. It's too obvious by any reasonable measure. In my opinion, what Einstein ultimately did was replaced physics, or substituted physics, with maths. Maths is not how you understand physics, it's not how you understand the world, it's how you measure it. For example, look at what Newton did with gravity and his famous mathematical formula for gravity. He was absolutely right with his formula, his mathematical formula. But he himself said, I don't understand gravity. That is what on the raw mechanical level, what's actually going on. How does it work? This machine we call gravity. He had no explanation. All he did, and he said this, was he offered a mathematical formula which explains its nature, so we can measure it. Maths is like telling us what it does, but not how it does it. Thing is, you should never be intimidated or overly impressed with mathematics, because at the end of the day, it's nothing more than a measuring rod. It's a very clever, exceedingly useful system for counting things, but a counting machine is all it is. There is no magic in maths, and if the maths tells you there is magic, it's wrong. Nikola Tesla even said that himself. He was quite brutal on Einstein back in his day and described his theories as a mathematical garb that impresses only a fool, to dramatically compress what he said. He was even more brutal than that. But he's right. It's, in some ways, what you do with maths, maths becomes a substitute, in a sense, for understanding. It's like quantum mechanics. Really, quantum mechanics should be called, in my opinion, a mathematical expression of what happens in the quantum world, because there is no mechanics. It's just mathematical formula that quantum processes appear to follow, in the same way that gravity followed Newton's law of gravity, his mathematical expression, but didn't explain it. Now, this is all leading to a point. By fooling people into thinking maths is, in effect, understanding, and it isn't, we falsely destroyed the idea of the ether. There is, even though it absolutely stinking reeks of existing, the ether. And that, I think, has had an incredible impact on the world of science and even, would you believe, the world of spiritualism. It's had a huge impact on the world of science because operating on that foundation assumption that there is no ether, somehow, even though there's obviously magnetic fields out there, but creating that assumption, I think, has frozen real physics development. It's just kneecapped it, basically. You create a false assumption, a powerful false assumption, powerful false dogma in any territory, and it stuffs everything up. People will be right on many levels, but they'll hit this limit. Bang, they'll go no further. And I think that's what's happened with our Einsteinian physics. Everything makes more sense in an ether reality, and what appears to be the truth in raw mechanical terms, in other words, true physics terms, as in real physics, not a mathematical expression of physics, is that the ether is the ultimate material, the ultimate reality. And what we experience as matter is nothing more than tiny little vibrations in the ether, like little ripples on a pond. It's superficial in that sense. We also know through superpositioning electrons that there is no latency in this ether. There doesn't need to be latency. It supports some kind of interaction which is instantaneous over no matter the distance, which is extraordinary. And what that suggests is that the entire universe, as we know it and as we can know it, is almost like one gigantic material internet that supports all kinds of wave interactions and wave behaviors, creating apparent matter as we experience it, but it's also interconnected in real time with zero latency, which is extraordinary. And our observations actually validate that. Now, when we can accept that, because we sort of, in a sense, we have an inside-out picture. We think that everything that we experience as matter is the greater substance. It's the real substance. And magnetic forces are just like dumb push-pull forces. But it appears to be the exact other way around. The ether, which is the ultimate material of material, may have an intelligence in it which is beyond comprehension. We barely know anything of it. We only know its superficial manifestations. And what we experience as matter is the superficial. Again, little ripples in a far, far greater pond. And the real material is the pond itself, not the tiny little ripples. And the tiny little ripples create the material world as we recognize it. Now, when we get that picture correct, our inside-out picture corrected around the other way, all of a sudden, an entire world of even spiritual speculation goes from being silly, flaky junk to entirely plausible. Especially when you realize, and there's an enormous amount of evidence for this, that your consciousness is probably based in the field, in the ether, and not the brain itself. There's so much evidence that points in that direction. So like your body and your brain is an avatar structure created somehow in the field. Well, that's a fact. We exist. And the consciousness logs onto it like a terminal. Just like the internet, your cell phone, when you're watching an internet site, the phone doesn't create the internet site, it logs onto it. The internet site logs onto your phone, and your brain does that. If you watch the Avatar movie, it's the exact same thing, where the guy logged onto his exo blue creature person. And appreciating that, getting that around, getting your inside out thinking outside in where it's supposed to be, you can start to open up to very, very interesting spiritual speculations. I don't like using the word spiritual because it sounds so flaky, but really what appears so implausible becomes plausible, including life after death or life after biological death as well. And I just want to make that point because I think it's very interesting and it's important for people to go there, because then we can get past the plausibility barrier so people can look into these questions and look into what's been found out around near-death experiences, reincarnation cases, and all that sort of stuff you might have heard of. and the science around that without just rolling your eyes. But I don't blame people for rolling their eyes because, again, they've got a picture of physics in their head which is bullshit and wrong. And believe you me, I'm not the only person to say that. There are many, many scientists who, especially going back in the day, who argued against Einstein legitimately, that would say the exact same thing. An ether-based reality is a very interesting one, and again opens up a whole new world of thinking. Thank you.